Hey, hello, how's everyone doing this evening? This is my and Ethan's presentation over natural selection. Here we go. Okay, the topics that we'll be looking over and discussing today. Directional selection, stabilizing selection, as well as disruptive selection. How they differ, how they are alike, what their functions are, and what we can conclude from them. An overview of what we'll be going over today. Today we'll be looking at what the differences are between the three topics discussed above, and how they all interact with certain cells and organisms, and how they are affected by the different types of selection, as well as what other potential outcomes can be caused from these three types of selections that were presented above. Okay, it's time. Let's dive on in. First one up, directional selection. The directional selection theory says that an extreme phenotype is favored over other phenotypes, and that this causes the allele frequency to shift over time in favor of the extreme phenotype. In other words, if a particular trait is favorable, it will be expressed at the most beneficial frequency in the population. For example, take a giraffe. When it's used in directional selection, would be the animal's neck length. You can see this out in the wild as today, as animals have progressed throughout evolution and time, that the ones that way back when were not the biggest or could not grow to the right height were never able to eat and ended up dying off with the bigger, larger, taller trees. And nowadays we get the height of the giraffe and how long their necks are versus how long they used to be way back when. And as well as if you look down here at the bottom below, you can see the natural curve from what it used to be and how it's now shifted in today's time. Okay, stabilizing selection. Next one up. Next is stabilizing selection. Through of all, middle of the road selection, meaning a non-extreme trait is favored instead of one of the two extreme traits. In a population of plants, those that are short may not get enough sunlight, but those that are tall may not be subjected to wind damage. This results as an increase in the number of medium height plants and a decrease in the very tall as well as the very short plants. Some examples of stabilizing selection are the birth weight of a human when coming into babies, as well as the number of eggs a bird may lay. Another example that is not on here is weather. When it comes to weather, you have things such as, take a hurricane on a beach. Houses that are very small may be threatened by water, but may not be damaged by wind necessarily, versus if you have high rises, they're more affected by wind, but they're not as affected by water damage. But then you also have what they call condos, and well, condos are kind of a happy medium, so we don't have as much issues with water, as well as they're not so tall that they have all these wind problems. So that's kind of just another example of the middle of the road per se that's being given here. And also we have a picture down here that kind of shows that same type of thing, especially looking right here. One end of the spectrum, complete polar opposite end of the spectrum, and then just your happy little medium is stabilizing selection. Okay, and let's continue, and we'll come back to this picture and look at this picture more in just a second. Disruptive selection. This type of natural selection is a bimodal and favors both extreme traits in a population. In a population of plants, if a pollinator that prefers medium height plants is removed, natural selection would seat against medium height plants, and the overall plant population would move towards having only tall or short plants. So pretty much cutting out the middle, that if they don't have the middle, that they'll go to one end of the spectrum or the other. It's pretty much what this is in the skinny. And that this gives two extreme phenotypes. A prime example of this would be majority of seeds found on some of the islands were either large or small. Finches with small or large beaks. No medium-sized beaks. It was one or the other. And on those particular islands, they were the ones that were most favored and the ones that ended up making it. Right here in the bottom hand corner, it's another just kind of example. Disruptive selection. Follow that natural curve. With that, it just kind of gives a opposite to what may happen. Instead of following the natural curve, if you had a medium, it's either the large or the small or the large. You don't have much option there, as well as another stabilizing selection of happy medium and directional selection. Okie dokie. And now let's continue. Natural selection. This is the overview of everything. That covers everything inside natural selection. See the big cloud bubble of it all. Natural selection is the process through which certain features in a population become more or less prevalent over successive generations. It happens as a result of people with specific qualities that are favorable in that environment, having a varying rate of survival and reproductive success. Here are some crucial details. Within population, natural selection works on a smaller scale, changing certain features over a generation instead of one ginormous change in a very small time. Very small things happen over a very long period of time. For example, you can take, and it all has a revolving evolution, you can take such things as animals, places, people, plants. Trees used to be massive, hundreds of feet high, and over time they've slowly diminished in size. Same thing with animals and people. While evolution uses a variety of methods and patterns, natural selection is driven by the selective pressures. Adaptation, as beneficial features are more likely to be passed down, succeeding in generations. Natural selection causes adaptations to slowly accumulate in a population. Variability, the variation of qualities within a population, is what drives natural selection. Similarities and differences. Okay, this is going to cover the similarities and differences between the three that we've discussed. Okay, the similarities. Directional and disruptive selection are based on the theory of natural selection suggested by Charles Darwin. Both express extreme traits of phenotypes. They are not the most common type of natural selection. As well as stabilizing and directional selection both drive homogenetically in a specific trait, reducing diversity. Excuse me, I can never pronounce that word correctly. Differences. When environmental pressures favor the average from one trait to the next, selection is said to be stabilizing. Directional selection occurs when selective pressures favor one extreme of a trait, as well as selection is disruptive when the average form of a trait is selected against, while either one is extreme or the other one is unaffected. Okay, so pretty much overall, the directional is focusing on one core, the disruptive is focused on one end of the spectrum or the other, and the stabilizing is focusing not on, let's say, black or white, but overall just the gray. Happy medium. And here's our conclusion. Overall, in conclusion, natural selection is a critical component of the evolutionary process shaping the genetic makeup of populations. There's a few similarities and differences between the three that we have gone over and covered. From this point out, this is question time. If anyone has any questions, concerns, or would like to know anything further, please let us know, and we'd be happy to answer. Ta-da! Thank you very much. And this has concluded our presentation over natural selection, as well as directional, disruptive, and stabilization. Thank you very much. From Ethan and Nate, we're out. Thank you. Bye.